So let's jump into what's undoubtedly one of the most contentious developments between the U.S. and Canada in recent years: President Trump's decision to impose a 25% tariff on Canada's auto industry. This is honestly a direct challenge to Canadian industries and ultimately the thousands of workers who depend on them. It's it's kind of shocking when you consider how tightly interconnected these two economies are.
Yeah, they're like glued together. The auto industry alone represents a multi-billion-dollar trade. Let's talk about the Ambassador Bridge for a second. It's the trade artery. We're talking a quarter of all cross-border goods between the U.S. and Canada pass through that single bridge. And now, tariffs? That's a political grenade tossed into the supply chain.
The Ambassador Bridge has always been more than just steel and concrete, right? It's this living symbol of an enduring partnership, familial, economic, cultural. But now, that partnership feels fractured. It's a front line of trade war tensions. And I can't help but think about the workers on either side who are caught in the crossfire. What does this mean for them?
It's devastating. Canadian workers are looking at job losses, and American consumers aren't walking away unscathed either. Tariffs raise costs, parts, whole vehicles, you name it, and it's all going to trickle down. You're looking at higher prices for cars in the U.S. market and potentially a huge disruption in just-in-time manufacturing processes. It's a ripple that turns into a tsunami.
And yet, the Canadian government is responding with such a unified front. Prime Minister Mark Carney, along with Lana Payne from Unifor, has made it clear that they're standing together with workers to weather this storm. I think it sends a strong message about resilience and collaboration, but at the same time, it's a daunting challenge. You've got these retaliatory tariffs and emergency economic supports being set up. And while those measures seem proactive, it all just feels reactionary, doesn't it?
Totally. It's like playing defense while scrambling to patch the leaky roof. Tariffs like this put immediate pressure on governments, industries, and citizens. And that's where things get dicey, especially with the uncertainty around how these tariffs will actually be applied, whether it's just on parts or entire vehicles. Either way, uncertainty, that's poison for economic stability.
Which begs the question, how do you dial back tension when the stakes are this high? Carney has emphasized unity, and let's be honest, there's no better strategy right now. Between government action, union support, and private sector adaptation, the hope is they soften the blow for Canadian workers. But Ethan, do you think...
Jenna, it's pretty remarkable how Canada isn't staying passive here. Prime Minister Mark Carney isn't just making speeches, he's backing them up. Retaliatory tariffs, worker support initiatives, and even a $2 billion fund to bolster a made-in-Canada supply chain. These aren't just reactionary moves. They're part of an active strategy to redefine their economic footing.
The $2 billion Strategic Response Fund, it's such a bold move. And it's not just about retaliation, it's about transformation. Creating a supply chain that's less dependent on American parts is a massive undertaking. But to be honest, isn't that the silver lining here? A chance for Canada to kind of reshape its industrial identity?
For sure, but it's going to be a rocky road. Supply chains aren't just some Lego set you can snap together overnight. The big aim here is resilience. But let's not forget, this kind of reshuffling takes time. And in the short term, it's a race to provide liquidity to companies so they don't collapse under the weight of these tariffs. Carney's ensured there's cash flow through emergency funds and tax deferrals. That buys some breathing room at least.
It's also about protecting the most vulnerable, the workers. The changes to the employment insurance system show how much the government is trying to cushion the blow. But I can't help but wonder, how sustainable is this approach? Balancing immediate relief with long-term strategic planning is, well, it's like walking a tightrope, isn't it?
Exactly. And let's face it, the clock's ticking. Workers need those EI benefits now. Same for the companies. They need to know they can make payroll next week. But at the same time, they're laying the groundwork for this made-in-Canada supply chain. If it works, it could be a game changer. If it doesn't, well...
The stakes couldn't be higher. And amidst all this, I find it fascinating how the unions, the government, and even the private sector seem to be aligning. There's this rare sense of unity that's emerged from the crisis. I mean, it's no exaggeration to say that how Canada navigates this might just redefine its economic resilience going forward. Ethan, you're right. Rewiring an economy like this isn't just a technical challenge, it's a deeply political one, too. Trade tensions like these reach beyond tariffs and retaliatory moves, shaping political outcomes in subtle but profound ways. Just look at Ontario, an industrial cornerstone that relies heavily on exports, particularly auto parts. This kind of crisis could shift the region's entire electoral dynamics.
Absolutely. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are jobs, livelihoods, and communities on the line. And let me throw in a historical example here. When the U.S. slapped tariffs on steel imports back in 2002, it led to temporary job creation in steel-producing states, sure, but cost far more jobs in steel-reliant industries. That backfired politically and economically.
Right, and it's a stark reminder that these measures can sometimes create as many problems as they aim to solve. Canada's retaliatory tariffs, though, seem more strategic, targeted, and deliberate as they try to shield vulnerable sectors and workers in the process. Even then, it's a gamble, isn't it?
Big gamble. But it's calculated, you have to admit. The hope is these tit-for-tat moves compel the U.S. to rethink its strategy. Historically, though, it's kinda hit or miss. The Smoot-Hawley Act in the 1930s? Total disaster. Triggered global retaliation and deepened the Great Depression. Then you've got smaller cases like dairy disputes in the 1990s where bilateral talks actually succeeded. So, it can go either way, really.
And amidst all this strategic maneuvering, the markets, as always, tell their own story. There's usually an instant reaction, plunging stocks, currency drops, even panic selling. But over time, the markets tend to stabilize. It goes to show how much investors value strategic preparedness over knee-jerk reactions. Being proactive might not eliminate uncertainty, but it sure helps cushion the blow.
Exactly. It's like the markets are looking for a strategy that says, hey, we've got this under control. And I think, in its own way, Canada is demonstrating that. By prioritizing unity, government, unions, and even industries working together, their approach isn't just about surviving, it's about laying the groundwork for transformation. It's survival of the most adaptable, if you will.
And that adaptability, Ethan, is what really fascinates me about this story. While this situation poses a massive challenge, it also presses Canada to reimagine its economic structure. It's this window of opportunity to reduce dependency, to innovate, to build something resilient out of the chaos. Of course, the road ahead will be anything but smooth, but the determination to control their own narrative, it's inspiring.
Couldn't agree more. And you know what? It really reinforces that age-old saying, it's not the crisis itself, but how you respond to it that defines success. Canada's putting everything on the table, and that tells me they're not just defending themselves, but reshaping the rules of the game.
You're right. Well, Ethan, I think that's a great note to end on. A reassuring reminder that no matter how daunting the challenge, resilience and innovation are always an option. And to our listeners, as you watch these developments unfold, remember to focus on what we can control, whether it's decisions in your investments or just staying informed. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for listening, folks. Take care.